Okay, we're live. Welcome everyone. I'm Angela Fehr and welcome to today's information session for Watercolor Mastery. I've promised you a lot of good things in this information session and I intend to deliver. In fact, I made myself a little note. It's backwards, but on here, my little whiteboard, I use this for titling my videos when I'm recording raw files. Encourage, inspire, and inform. And that's my goal today for you. Generally, I want to encourage you. If you're feeling alone in your painting journey, you are not. I want to inspire you. I want you to have some hope and a direction for the future. And I want to inform you. I want you to know what this course is all about. You've been hearing about Watercolor Mastery, and maybe you're not sure if it's the right next step for you. We're going to talk about that. I asked in the comments, I want to welcome everyone who's joining me. I have if you see my darting my look over sideways here, I'm not being furtive. I can see the chat for our YouTube interaction on my computer, but it's just a little bit off to the side. So I'm not shifty. I'm just keeping an eye on the busy conversation over in our chat. Robin, my assistant, is there to watch for your questions. So technical stuff that you're having trouble with or anything like that, feel free to ask those there throughout the broadcast. We've got a lot of information to go through. I know you're joining me from all over the world. We've got a lot of viewers in the US, and I'm a little jealous of those of you who are saying it's rainy because we just got 4 inches of snow here in northern British Columbia. Really good day to stay indoors and paint. And we have viewers from Europe. I saw Sweden here, and we have lots of Canadians as well. Lena's here from India. Let's see here. Yeah, just all over the world. I love that we get to be this big worldwide community of watercolor lovers. And what we share in common is our love of watercolor. And it's a really unifying thing. How could it not be? Watercolor is so beautiful. And the business of making art and figuring out how to make your art is something that we all struggle with together. And so that I find that's really inspiring for me. To know I'm not alone, to have others who are tackling the same problems and questions. And so we share in that together. I was also thinking, we live in we always live in an unpredictable world. And there's a lot of talk about coronavirus right now. And needing to change plans or to anticipate possibly having to stay home. And the one thing I think that we're all struggling with right now is a struggle with the information that's available to us. Who do we listen to? What do we believe? Which conversations are actually beneficial and which ones are just raising that fear and anxiety level? Who do we trust? And I was thinking about that as I thought about Watercolor Mastery. And my courses, I'm not going to get into the whole virus thing because, we just don't want to go there. We hear enough about it. But I was thinking about that information age. Here we are with the internet, and we have this huge abundance of information online. And when it comes to learning watercolor, we have an abundance of information as well. But then again, you can see that there's a vast range of difference of opinion in different techniques, what's important, what isn't important. When just talking about paint colors, which brands to use, which pigment, do you listen to pigment numbers? Do you pay attention to that? Do you stretch your paper or don't you? And we have a lot of information out there, but it's really hard to know what information to pay attention to. Who do you trust? What do you look for? What do you listen to? Just having information isn't always enough. And sometimes we just want to have some support from someone we trust. We want to choose good sources. We want information that's organized in a way that we can follow and understand. And that's one reason I do encourage people. I have tons of videos on my YouTube channel, but I also encourage people to spend some time in taking an online course. If you're liking what you're finding on the YouTube channel, you still have to filter through everything you find on YouTube to find what fits for you. And often a little bit more structure can be really helpful in helping you maintain a consistent growth and direction in your watercolor practice. So we're going to talk about that as well. Okay, here we are. I'm just pulling out my notes for Watercolor Mastery, this information session. I don't want to miss anything. And I've got some beautiful slides, but I also have a little bit of I don't know, my software doesn't always present them properly. So we're going to hope everything works well. The magic of live video, or the I don't know if it's magic. It's not. It's the opposite of magic. The one issue with live video, of course, is that there may be technical difficulties. If you're having trouble hearing or seeing me, as Robin said in the chat, do reload your page. That's the first thing to try. And if you want to comment on the chat and you're not seeing a way to do that, you do need to be logged in with a Google account in order to comment on YouTube videos. So watch for that. Usually there's a little arrow in the sidebar that will show you where to go to chat. And so if you see me talking about the chat and you can't see it, sometimes it takes a little bit of poking around to find it, depending on what device you're using. Okay. If you're a watercolor like me, watercolor lover like me, you're in the right place today. I want to share some information that's going to help you grow as an artist, no matter what your style is, and no matter whether or not that you're ready to take watercolor mastery. And I'm really this information session, ever since I first launched Watercolor Mastery, my 6-week online course. I believe 2 years ago was the first time we went through it, and we do it usually twice a year. And every time I've done it, I've made it a point to do these free information sessions because I really want to have only the people who really need to be in the course. I only want to have you there. I don't want anybody to feel like they got sweet talked into something that they weren't ready for. So we're going to talk about what makes you ready for watercolor mastery. And it's more or less than you think. I really want to have people sign up and say, I'm so excited I took the plunge. I committed to this program. And why did I wait so long? So that's kind of what we're looking for. The course is going to be most effective when you're ready for it. And so that's why we do this information session. Okay, first of all, I'm going to pop up a slide here if I can do it properly. It takes a couple of buttons. And I'll get better at it through the progression of the course here. There we go. Okay, so this is our slideshow. And yes, we are opening the doors for Watercolor Mastery today, actually. You can sign up and enroll today. The course itself starts March 27th. In this course, in this information session, I'm going to share with you the principles that will help you grow your skills and become your own favorite watercolor artist. We're going to be running through those principles over the next over 8 weeks starting March 27th. It's a 6-week course and we're doing it in 8 weeks. I wanted you to have a little extra time, and I'm traveling for 2 weeks during that time period. So that was the only way I was going to be able to run the course this spring, was if we had that 2-week intermission. And I like that actually, because a lot of times people who start in a 6-week course, somewhere along the way, life gets in the way and you might find yourself getting a little bit behind. So this 2-week intermission gives you a little bit of time to get caught up. It is an interactive course, and what that means is I can't come to your house and paint with you, but we can have live video sessions. We can have an interactive course community where you can share your work and get feedback from myself and the other students in the course. We really try to make this as engaging as possible. It's a classroom environment without you having to leave the comfort of your home. And a lot of times in a watercolor workshop, people tend to feel a little bit self-conscious about doing your work, about maybe the skill of the artist beside you, or you just don't feel as creative as you might if you're at home in your own space. So you get the best of both worlds with an online course that way. And we include the student community. We give you access even past the wrap up of the course, right up until June 15th. I want to just share this testimonial from Hillary, a past Watercolor Mastery student. She says, "My thanks to you for designing and teaching the Watercolor Mastery class is heartfelt. Your passion in the watercolor art and your love for teaching inspired all of us, your students, to become more free and fearless. Your words excited and encouraged all of us in our attempt to find or develop our own style. You showed us how to have confidence in ourselves and be our favorite artists, and the amazing thing is that we all responded. I painted more paintings in the past 6 weeks during class than I had in the past 3 years when I first picked up watercolor painting, and what you taught will stay with us for a long time. Thank you so much for this gift." the what you taught will stay with us for a long time. That's the most important part of watercolor mastery. Watercolor mastery isn't about making flawless paintings. I used to think that when I'd painted a perfect painting, then I could consider myself, a professional artist or a skilled artist, or to have arrived in my art level. I have never yet painted a perfect painting. And so that was not the goal. And I wasted a lot of years trying to paint a perfect painting and feeling frustrated or diminished because I wasn't doing that. Watercolor mastery also isn't replicating a mentor's style of art. You are not here to learn how to paint just like me. The goal is to learn how to get the inner artist in you out on the paper. Watercolor mastery is also not reaching a level plateau of skill and style. It's not about reaching some advanced level and just never progressing past that. Watercolor mastery means you're going to be continually growing throughout your painting life. Watercolor mastery is also not knowing everything there is also not knowing everything there is to know about watercolor. I am still learning new things that I didn't know about watercolor. And every time that happens, it's exciting and it opens up new opportunities for breakthroughs. And it's not certainty regarding your path as an artist. We as artists live in the unknown, and we have to live there in order to make creative work. Creativity means working on the edge of surprise and working into that unknown. And when you feel sure that you know exactly how everything's going to go and everything's predictable, your art is going to be a little predictable, and it's not going to be exciting and creative. I want to tell you a little bit about my story with this crazy photo of me, and my story is very much tied up with my family. This is my family, my husband Wade, and our 3 kids. They are aged 13, 15, and 17 right now. So yes, I have 3 teenagers in my house, and it's extremely overwhelming. And I started painting when I was a young single girl, not much older than my oldest daughter. I'm just going to switch back so I can look at you again. There we go. I was a teenager, and I had just moved back to my hometown here in Dawson Creek, British Columbia, after graduating from high school. And I had painted and drawn all through my childhood, all through my teen years. And I knew that I wanted to take an art class, and watercolor was the first class that was available. And so I dove in, took that first 8-week course. It was, 8 weeks of once a week in the evenings. Everyone else in my class was over 60, and my instructor was a lovely powerhouse of a woman, Edna McPhail. And that group of women, first thing they did was they took that terrible student grade watercolor paper out of my hands, and they loaned me or gave me their arch paper so I could work with 100% cotton and see the difference and learn on good paper. And their generosity was so encouraging. They really believed in me, and that was very powerful for an 18-year-old girl, hoping that she had what it took to become an artist. And so from there, I took that first 8-week course, went home and painted when I had time. And a lot of times that was sitting on the couch with a painting board on my lap, watching TV, and struggling through copying a reference photo. I loved painting landscapes. My landscapes generally were full of struggle because I was trying to control the paint and get it to look just like my photograph. And not realizing that in my heart, it was the first layer where everything got to flow and be loose. That was the part that was really exciting to me. And then I'd immediately kill it by putting a million brush strokes over top of those first fluid washes and generally overworking my paintings. And I didn't know that craving for fluidity was the seeds of the artist that I was meant to be. And so that was a journey. That was something that took me years to realize. And I don't think it has to be that way. Now we're part of I didn't have the internet back then. So what I knew about watercolor, I found in watercolor magazines or books at the library. They had like 5 books at my library about watercolor. And so learning, how diverse and exciting watercolor could be, that took quite a few years. In 2013, I discovered some artists who were making the intuitive fluid art that I was craving. And I I felt in their work a permission for me to pursue the same path, to find out how to paint loosely and intuitively in my way. And that was really, really powerful for me. That was really the turning point in my creative career. Rather than setting perfection, a flawless painting as my goal, and looking for recognition from other people for whether or not my art was successful, I really started looking inward and thinking about what kind of artist I really wanted to be, what kind of art made my heart sing. And do I really need people to approve of my work in order to make art that makes me happy and is satisfying and that I consider to be, the best of what I can express? And that was hugely powerful in my life. And that process of realizing that was what I needed, that intuitive style, and then there was all this unknown because I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what my art's going to look like if I deviate from something I can measure. Does my painting look like my photograph? That's measurable. But does my painting look like the loose style I'm craving? That was something I had to find out for myself. And it was like stepping out onto a foggy place. I couldn't see the ground. And I just had to trust that it was there. If I stepped forward into that future that I wanted, I could get there. And the good news is that was 2013. Here we are in 2020. I was going to say 2017. That's weird. And I've found a joy in my painting process that I never knew that I could have. I'm no longer measuring success by one painting, by the last painting I did. And if that painting didn't turn out, then I'm feeling despair. And I'm no longer dependent on somebody else's approval to make art that makes my heart sing. And through that process, what I found was new life came into my paintings. People connected with my art because my heart was in it. And so they were seeing things in my art that excited them, more than just, oh, that painting looks really skilled, rather they were starting to see my heart in my work. Not everybody, not everyone's going to understand your work when you're painting from your heart, but the people that do, it's such a high compliment. It's so powerful to be connected together over that kind of spiritual aspect of putting yourself into your work and then having other people see that and value it. Wow, what a compliment. Okay, so that's where I'm at now. Talking about Watercolor Mastery, and when I first started thinking about teaching a course titled Watercolor Mastery, I'd been teaching watercolor online for several years and teaching step by step, mostly loose, how to paint loosely as a newer painter. And a lot of that was done through step-by-step demonstrations. This is how you paint this thing in a loose style. And that's a really good place for a beginner to learn. And if you're fairly new to painting, you'll have seen that. You'll have seen how copy work is really powerful. You get to observe another artist's decision-making process, and you benefit from that. And they've done all the work of figuring out what the composition should look like and what colors to use. And so you get to focus on the technique. And that's great when you're just getting started. But once you start to feel comfortable with technique, there's something inside of us that starts to crave that self-expression. You want to make your own decisions. And for me, what I see that as is that every artist really is self-taught. You need to be the curator of your artistic education. You're looking for the right people to guide you, whether you're just getting started and you need that copy work, or whether you're ready to branch out and become more independent. And so I could see that there was a need for a course that was more than just copy work, that started to help artists make that transition between learning technique and becoming that strong, independent, heart-guided artist. Finding your personal style. And we hear it all the time. Have you thought about that? What's my personal style? I know you have. Leave a comment in the chat if you've been thinking about trying to figure out what your personal style is or try to nail it down. We're going to talk about that. Really, though, as I started to think about this course that would bridge that need, and then to title it Watercolor Mastery, a little bit of imposter syndrome came in. Who am I to teach a course on watercolor mastery? I'm not a famous artist. I don't sell paintings for thousands of dollars. I have never really been considered among the elite in the world of watercolor. My reputation isn't really high up there. And that's actually what makes me the perfect person to teach this course, because I didn't know that I could master watercolor. I didn't know if I had what it took to become an artist, or if I could create the art I yearned to make. I was making art in between raising babies and caring for my family and working jobs, really just trying to muddle my way to grow as an artist in the little corners of time that I was able to carve for myself. And I had to learn how to be a personal trailblazer for my artistic journey. And the deal with trailblazing is you don't actually see the path until you turn to look behind you and see how far you've come. And so when I started thinking about creating a course called Watercolor Mastery, that was really what I had to do. Looking back, and I spent a lot of time, and months in fact, looking back to try to figure out what it was that really got me to this place where I love the art I make. I get so excited to just get up and paint every day. I paint for the sheer joy of seeing the color move across the paper. I've given myself fully to that love of watercolor, and I've found that there's an incredible freedom in finding your own heart-guided path. And I want everybody else to feel that freedom too. I'm a full convert. And I think that, and I really believe that every artist can become their own favorite artist, just like I did. And that's why we're here. Okay, so back to the slides, because I feel like I'm going to get off track if I'm not careful. That's what I do. Okay, there we go. So this is a testimonial from Michelle. My painting has improved in every way as a result of taking this course. I really wanted to put all of myself into the course, and that is a huge key for success, Michelle, and keep up with the lessons and group discussions. And I had to paint practically every day for 6 weeks in order to do that. We'll talk a little later about the actual amount of time this course is going to take. In doing so, I had developed the habit of painting daily, and because of that, I would say that this is the most worthwhile watercolor course I've ever taken. I love the discussion pages and weekly recaps. It really helped to feel supported and encouraged by Angela and the other members, and to give that back as a class member. I love that story, Michelle, because it's really why I'm doing this information session, because I want my ideal student there in the course, someone who is willing to give of yourself to the course content and to the rest of the class with the time that you have. Okay, so what is a watercolor master? Number one, I believe that a watercolor master understands art and design principles and chooses how to apply them. You have a foundation of knowing the rules. I love the quote, and I really should look up the source. Learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. I think it's Picasso. We know the rules because there's foundational stuff that can make your painting stronger, and you get to decide how you're going to apply them into your work. So we are going to be spending time going over those art and design principles in the first half of the course. Number two, a watercolor master seeks to build technical skill in watercolor by curating her education. You look for teachers to fill in the gaps in your learning, the things that you need for your watercolor journey. And that's what you're doing right now. Watercolor master rejects fear and paints with authenticity and emotion. I really don't think you can completely banish fear from your watercolor practice, from your artistic journey. But you can recognize the place that you can recognize it and put it in its place. Learning how to tap into those inner heart desires so that you can put those emotions on your paper. Watercolor is, I'm just going back to that actually for a second. Watercolor is a transparent medium. It also makes it a very honest medium. So often I can look at a painting and I can see the artist's emotion. And that's not just their love of watercolor and their joy at painting, but it's also if you're painting with anxiety or fear, I can see that too. It's amazing how much emotion goes into your paintings, even when you're not planning to do that. Okay, number four, a watercolor master has an understanding of the motivations that drive their art. Why do you paint that subject? What do you want to pursue? We get to talk about that. What are your goals for your art? Number 5, this is a big one in my mind. A watercolor master has made peace with the ongoing learning process. It never ends. You will always be learning. You will always feel like there's more and you just don't have enough information yet. We make peace with that, and we recognize that we can't rush the learning. I can't decide how fast I'm going to learn, but I can to decide to be too stubborn to quit. And finally, a watercolor master knows that mistakes, a watercolor master knows that mistakes are tools for growth and not signs of failure. We don't have to be shamed by mistakes. We recognize that if you're not making mistakes, you're probably not stepping out of your comfort zone and learning. So we recognize that mistakes play a role. They don't judge us. They don't define who we are. And a watercolor master is motivated by the heart more than outside influences or expectations. We can seek outside sources of information to make our paintings stronger, but at the end of the day, you're in charge of the decisions you're making, and you want them to come from your heart. And finally, a watercolor master is his or her own favorite artist. Choosing to love your work and be your biggest advocate for your work. Come on, how could that not be powerful in your watercolor journey? Think about it. If you don't love your work, if you're not a huge advocate for it, can you really expect anyone else to be? Little peek at my studio. This is where I work. I've actually recently replaced those tables, so I should put an updated photo in here. I love my beautiful space, but whenever I come in here, I really choose to be thankful for it because I spent so many years painting in the middle of a busy life, on the kitchen table while my kids did their schoolwork. On the couch, up in the bonus room where we had everything fun for our house, our board games and our books and our office supplies, not so much fun. Everything was there, and there was just the chaos of life all around. So I'm pretty thankful for this studio space, but if you love art, you will make it anywhere. Janet leaves this comment regarding Watercolor Mastery. I didn't think I was ready for a mastery course, but I am so glad that I joined. This is the most progress I've made in about 2 years. So Janet was feeling stalled out, and Mastery provided that next push to that next level. Janet says, I was always painting with a tutorial or online class as I had no confidence or skill really to paint on my own. During this course, I started to put together the skills with my own heart and begin to paint alone. This forced me to confront my lack of confidence and to just paint. I am painting with more confidence and feeling like the outcome is my own. I am liking more of what I do and finally really believing that I will get better if I just keep painting. Thank you so much, Angela. Thank you, Janet. I love there were some keywords here that really stood out to me. Confidence is one I hear over and over and over again as we talk about watercolor mastery. The confidence that is created through the 6 weeks of this course alone is a game changer. It's really, really powerful. And the independence that happens, okay, I'm going to skip back for just a second. As Janet says, I started to put together the skills with my own heart and begin to paint alone. That's really what I want for you, is to recognize that watercolor mastery is about owning your journey. There comes a point in every artist's life where you have to step aside from the need to rely on somebody else, from somebody else to tell you what to do and how to do it. And, we kind of get trained to follow other people's opinions when we're following tutorials step by step. We get trained to rely on somebody else. And so at a certain point, you do have to step out on your own. And that's really what Watercolor Mastery is here for, is to provide that support and strength that you need to take that next step and to recognize artists spend a ridiculous amount of time alone. If we want to make good paintings, we have to put in the time in our studio or in your painting space. And a lot of that is on your own. So are you a good painting partner for yourself? Are you sharing words of support and encouragement with yourself as you paint? We learn how to do that through Watercolor Mastery. Are you ready for Watercolor Mastery? We're going to take a quick look at the 6 principles of the course. We go through a different principle every week through the 6 weeks of the course. And then we'll just quickly go over a little checklist that I have. Actually, we'll do that right now. Okay, so 6 signs this course is right for you. Number 1, you have been building skill in watercolor techniques up until now, and you're feeling ready to start focusing on interpretation. That is to develop your personal style. Your interpretation is, expressing yourself through your paintings. You are dissatisfied with copying. You no longer do you want to copy your reference photos or follow the step-by-step paint like this style formats. You want to do more than that. If you have that inner craving, you're ready to start thinking about how to make that change. You're feeling like you're at a crossroads in your watercolor journey, but you're not really sure which direction to go. We spend time really looking at mindset so that you can kind of analyze your motivations and start choosing new directions for yourself. Your paintings are technically accurate, but they don't really feel like they have any personality. You want to get more of you into your paintings. I feel that way very strongly, and I can paint a competent painting now, one that looks a lot like the reference photo. But there's always a part of me that looks at that painting when I finish it and thinks, I just want to do more. I want to share more than that, more than just a competent depiction. And so that's where, figuring out what does my watercolor master self want to put into that painting, and we take that next step. We really need you, if you want to be ready for watercolor mastery, you really need to be ready to fail and make mistakes, trusting that you're learning in the process. If failure is making you feel defeated, if mistakes feel like the end of the world for you, this is a mindset shift that has to change if you want to grow as an artist and really figure out who you are as an artist. And finally, if you're ready, you might be ready for watercolor mastery if you really, really love watercolor and yearn to paint freely from the heart. Okay, let's move over and look at the principles of mastery. That's over here. I think I rewrote Watercolor Mastery, my lesson plan, 3 times in the 6 months it took me to kind of put this together. I had a lesson plan. I'd look it over and just audit it every time. Is this really what's going to meet my students' needs and provide the transformational opportunities that I know are possible? We do this 6-week course just a few times a year. This year, we're only doing it once. And we want to be really involved with you on your journey. Figuring out, how these principles apply to your life is a process, and it's one we want to work with you. Week 1, we start by doing kind of a creativity audit. We look at our creative practice. What are you doing as an artist that's working? And what things are you doing that are maybe holding you back? Sometimes we repeat ourselves in the same mistakes while hoping for a different outcome. And so we're going to spend some time being analytical about how you use technique and challenging what we've always assumed our artistic practice needs in order to break new ground and move ahead. And one way we do that is by taking a painting we've done in the past and changing it up. Now, I'm ready to take this painting. This is one of the lessons from the course. The course is full of demonstrations of how I might apply each principle. These demonstrations are totally optional because, again, we want you to be applying these principles to your own artistic journey. But I do find it's always helpful to share some demonstrations so you can see how another artist might actually apply those lessons. So this particular painting is one that I've done many times previously, and I often challenge myself to repaint it and in a new way, turn it on its head, twist it up somehow. And so I'll demonstrate that in week 1. In week 2, we start looking at values. And values are, I find, one of the most foundational artistic principles that will transform your paintings and make your paintings stronger. When we learn how to see in terms of value, the range of light and dark in your painting and the contrast between them, value powerfully impacts your viewers' travel through the painting, how their eye moves through the scene. And so when we learn to see the values in our reference material or in our even if you're painting abstract, value is really powerful. So we learn how to see value so that we can paint and have more impact in our paintings. And one way we do that, I'll show you my demonstration here. I took this little, it was actually a reference photo of crocuses, and I fell in love with the composition, the arrangement of those floral shapes so much that you can see I carved it out as a linoleum block print here. I sketched it in pen and ink, and then I painted it in watercolor. And paying attention to the values gives us that strong contrast, that feeling of light and shadow, and learning to see value is a process. It's something that I feel like I'm always getting better at. It's a kind of X-ray vision for your reference photos because often we get sidetracked by color. And so going back to look at the pattern of black and white, at the grayscale, and then keeping that in our mind's eye as we're painting is really powerful for creating more impact in your painting and understanding how the viewer's eye moves through your scene. The weeks 1 through 3 are really almost the times that we spend how do I phrase it? Weeks 1 through 3 are the hardest weeks of Watercolor Mastery because we are thinking about some core artistic principles, which can be a struggle. And also, I think just getting a feeling for the flow of the course and making that habit to invest yourself. It can be very tiring. It can be really a feeling of pushing yourself. And that's one reason I'm excited that we are having our 2-week intermission this time through the course so that you have time to kind of linger over the lessons in this section. Week 3, we spend time looking at color theory. If value impacts the way the viewer moves through the painting, color impacts how they feel about the painting. Color creates mood. Color can unify your painting. The wrong color can throw everything off. And we can learn to mix color more confidently by following some simple principles. It doesn't have to be complicated. There's a very extensive supply list in Watercolor Mastery, but my preference is for you not to go shopping as soon as you enroll in the course. Rather, I would like you to work with what you have and slowly add to your supplies as you need to. But working with the colors that you're, whoops, sorry, that was my water cup. Working with the colors that you already have gives you more confidence in wielding those colors and learning how to mix them. Somebody who signs up for this course and then buys all new supplies so that they match what I'm using is someone who's going to struggle with a much larger learning curve than if you were to apply these lessons and the principles in the lessons by using what you have. In the demonstrations for Color Week, we actually do 2 paintings using the same color palette, but by mixing it differently, we create very different moods for the scene. So how you mix your colors is really impactful in the mood that's created. Week 4, we start to have a little bit of fun with interpretation. And this is where you really start to explore your personal style and let it come out on the paper. We start looking at how composition happens before you ever start painting. We have to understand the foundational composition in your reference material. Again, if it's a reference photo or maybe an abstract thumbnail sketch, whatever you're using, we need to be able to understand the composition so that we can simplify the scene, strip away the detail and understand what's at the base of it, and strengthen our focal point and really figure out what we want viewers to see and what needs to be in the painting and what doesn't. And composition is the skeleton that makes up your painting. Every painting has a composition, but it's amazing how the composition can change if you get your values wrong or you place contrast in the wrong place. So we want to be very intentional about how we see and understand composition. In this lesson, we look at a painting with that I've done many times again. It's a favorite composition. We look at the foundation of that composition, and then I demonstrate how we can take that composition and change it up to paint it differently every time, and to continue to build on that original skeleton of the painting, our composition, and improvise. When you have your foundational painting skeleton, your composition, you can really have a lot of fun and freedom with your improvisation. Principle 5 is probably my favorite week of the course, free to be me. Doesn't that sound fun? This is where we get to use some experimentation to surprise ourselves, to let the creativity out, and yes, to learn the rules and break them like an artist. We're going to take some of the don'ts that we've heard for watercolor and completely rebel. Some of that is going to result in some crazy intuitive messes. I think this painting has so much energy, but it also has, a little bit of muddy mess. And that's free to, we're free to let that happen in our paintings as we play with some different techniques and introduce a few new mediums into our painting process. I do a demonstration on Yupo, which is a plastic paper, and I like bringing in kind of unexpected supplies. Doesn't mean you have to go shopping. You can even just challenge yourself to do a painting without using a brush. Use feathers and twigs and string, and that can really open up your creativity. When we open ourselves up to experimentation and to surprise, we see our creativity and our what ifs, our ability to welcome surprise into our paintings, result in freer, more creative work. Finally, in week 6, as we wrap up, my goal really is for my students to feel fired up and free. So we want to practice our fearlessness. We want to understand what our studio practice is going to look like as we move away from the course, and recognize that repetition, learning from your mistakes, these are all things that really have a powerful role in developing your skills and style. And I demonstrate my own studio practice, how I might take a painting concept from that very first concept to developing it right through to creating more of a studio painting, something I might put in a gallery, or just share, zipping ahead, or just share publicly. It's a process, and there's usually half a dozen or more development pieces that go into those finished paintings. Okay, I want to spend a minute here talking about the course and how it works, as we have quickly been whizzing through the content here and my notes. I also really appreciate the comments in the chat here. I see lots of questions being answered from past Mastery students, and I appreciate that. Your testimonials really are powerful. And you are my best advocates for the course. For me, when I made this course, I couldn't know for sure if it was really going to meet the needs that I was seeing for my students, if it was going to meet my goals for the course. And over again, over the last 2 years, as we've rolled this course out, a couple of times a year, we've seen powerful transformations happen in those students. I've had students go on to become independent artists who are showing their work, winning awards, and it's so exciting to see. I'm so proud of you. So exciting. Okay, so this might be the first time that you've considered taking an interactive course, and you might be wondering what that's going to look like, and if you have the time to invest in this. We really try to make it as easy as possible for you to be involved in Watercolor Mastery. And you can choose how much you want to participate. Not everybody wants to just dive in and interact and share their work and post and leave comments and be chatting in the live video and so forth. And that is okay. For some of us just want to have the video content and work quietly at home. And I'm just here to encourage you wherever you're at. Once you're enrolled in the course, and we've got, Robin will post a link to the enrollment. It's in the description below the video as well. Once you're enrolled, you can log into the course at learn.angelafehr.com and move around. At this point, the first course week lesson does not roll out until March 27th. So for the time being, you'll have time to prepare. There's a resource list. You want to make sure you have lots of watercolor paper on hand. Again, I'm stressing that you do not, and you should not, buy everything on the list, but do have good watercolor paper to work with, and have everything close at hand so that you can feel really prepared. There's a supply list. There's introductory information to help you get acquainted. There's a video talking about using color and substituting color, because I get a lot of questions about that. And you'll also receive an invitation to join the Fearless Artist community. That's where the interactive part of the course happens, where you can post your paintings as you do them, where you can ask questions and leave comments and support other students as they go through the learning process of the course. I also do a weekly live video recap, and all that information will be there for you once you've enrolled. I know this is also the time when most watercolor instructors really start pushing their viewers to enroll. This is where I get to give you my sales pitch, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to tell you that, oh, there's a time-sensitive offer, and if you enroll right now, you get all, this, or you're if you don't enroll right now, you're going to miss out. I'm not going to tell you that. I really, really want you to feel ready for this. I want you to know that this is the right next step for you. If you're not sure about that, if you want to join the course, but you're afraid you're not ready, you know what? If your heart is saying you need this, that's what you need to listen to. And if you email me, you can email me and ask, tell me your story and ask if you're the right person for this course. I'm happy to answer those emails. But I'm just going to tell you, do what your heart says. If your heart is saying this is what you need, you can trust that. That's part of learning to trust your inner artist. I know that Watercolor Mastery can create transformation, but it will only do that if you're ready to invest and really be open to this. I have 3 teenagers, as I mentioned, and what I have seen with my teenagers is they live in a place of resistance a lot of the time, as their brains are maturing. I need some water. They kind of have to learn stuff for themselves. So when mom says something, their mindset is one of resistance a lot of times. They don't think I know what I'm talking about. If you're in a place of resistance, if you're not ready to take in exercises that might feel out of your comfort zone and invest with your whole heart, the transformation is not going to happen. You're not ready to grow yet. And that is okay. Allow yourself the time to grow, to think about all of this, to mull it over and make your peace with it. It's okay. I have to trust my teenagers are going to grow to that place too, and make good decisions. But it's interesting how you can just tell, someone's ready, someone's resistant. And if you're feeling ready, this is for you. The official enrollment for this course is, I know the date on the slide said March 13th, but we've actually opened enrollment right now. We didn't want you to have to wait if you're excited about doing it and ready to go. Why would I make you wait another day? Enrollment is only open until March 20th. What we do on the 20th of March is we start with prep week. This is a week where we start thinking and getting our minds and our supplies ready for the course. And then March 27th, that very first course week lesson set rolls out. Tomorrow, I will be doing a live question and answer session. So a lot of the questions you're asking are going to be covered in that session. If you have questions, do send me an email. info@angelafehr.com. I know Robin's linked that up, or you can reply to the email you received telling you about this session. All of that will get to me, and we'll be keeping track of your questions so we can answer them tomorrow. And finally, what else am I forgetting? Oh, people, let me just pop up my final screen here, and that's not it. There we go. So yes, enrollment opens March 12th. You can find the course at learn.angelafehr.com. The official start date for the course is March 27th. And I do have the cost there, $299 US, or $380 with the Canadian exchange rate. There is an option for dividing that into 2 payments if that is something that you need. And we are limiting space. I do not want to be teaching thousands of people watercolor mastery. We want to have a small group that can really engage and interact carefully. So we limit the enrollment to around 100 students. And we do invite previous watercolor mastery students to come in and go through the course content with us. We do that because our Watercolor Mastery alumni can really provide enhance the learning environment. You guys get to share what you've learned and really help support and reinforce the principles in the lessons, because it's very easy to get sidetracked by techniques when we should be thinking about heart and mindset. And so we welcome past Watercolor Mastery students. All you need to do to be enrolled in that is to be a member of our Fearless Artist community. And you can, if you're not signed up for that right now, the membership is $30 a month. So you just need to be a member for that period of the Watercolor Mastery course. And you can do that as well at learn.angelafehr.com. And if you have questions about that, if that's confusing at all, again, we are available by email. Robin and I are both watching that email to take your questions. Robin handles the technical stuff, and I get to, do the fun stuff and answer all the other questions. I think that's really all I wanted to cover today. I just, once again, wanted to reiterate, this is not a place for everyone. But I know how hard it is to be at that stage of knowing there's a next step, knowing you're in a place of transition and you need more, and not being sure how to do that. I know the doubt and discouragement that can happen. And I want to be a support for you in that process as you're figuring out what kind of artist you were meant to be. What I've seen is that this is something you can achieve. And why wouldn't we want to support each other in that? And really, that's what Watercolor Mastery is all about and what we focus on. And it's so exciting when you see an artist create a painting. It happens in the course over and over again. Create a painting and we look at it, we can just see you. We can see your heart. We can see your passion and your love. And it's just the most unifying thing. It builds connections between artists, between people. When we share from our hearts in this visual medium. It's really exciting. I'm just going to quickly take one last look at the chat and see if I'm missing anything. Robin, let me know. Robin's just reiterating some of the dates and times. The very first lesson starts on the 27th, and then we'd start our live videos they'll be on the Tuesdays each week after each lesson week rolls out. Let's see here. Jackie says, thanks for the session, Angela. Emotionally, I'm ready for this, but I know I need to hone my basic skills first. I look forward to being ready. I have to mention, I have students who take Watercolor Mastery who probably weren't quite technically ready for a mastery level course. But I think that, and this is a struggle. I don't like to push anybody into it before they're ready, but there are very few people who actually felt sure that they were ready for this technically. Most of the time, we feel like we need to be just a little bit better yet. That's why you have to listen to your heart, because your head's going to say, oh, well, you should really, you aren't spending enough time painting. You're not really good enough yet for that. This is the only time I'm teaching Watercolor Mastery this year, and I'm not even sure I'm offering it next year. So this might be the very last time we're doing it as an interactive series. So do keep that in mind as you're thinking about the course. I don't want to push you. I really don't. But do be aware that there is sometimes that little fear thing that says, I'm not ready. If you can just wrap your mind around, oh, no, it's not even that. Just give yourself permission to be ready. So sometimes it's just that little bit of fear that's holding you back. So I give you permission to take this course, even if you're just on the other side of readiness. If you're almost ready but not quite, it's probably going to be okay. And if we plunge into and we do offer a guarantee. If we plunge in and you're absolutely drowning, we have refunds for that. So keep that in mind as well. Yes, I think that is it. Lee, you're asking about the Fearless Artist membership, if you can take the course as a Fearless Artist member. The only way that Fearless Artist members can take the course is if they've purchased Watercolor Mastery in the past. You have to have enrolled in Watercolor Mastery to be able to be a part of the interactive series. If you enrolled in the past, then you just need that Fearless Artist membership, but you have to be enrolled in the course, and the only way to do that is through purchasing on the learn.angelafehr.com page. I just wanted to clear that up because I don't want there to be confusion about that. And if there still is, Send us an email. Okay, I'm wrapping this up. I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot. Send us an email if you have questions. You are ready for this. Don't let fear hold you back. Give yourself permission to be the artist you were meant to be. That's all I have to say about that. Thanks for joining me. I'm excited about working with another crop of Watercolor Mastery students and seeing the growth that's going to happen in the next couple of months. And I can't wait to start painting with you. Bye for now.